Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The situation in the VCT is becoming clearer by the day. A huge couple of games in the Americas last night as Sentinels' dreams of qualifying for the playoffs just about come to an end. They got very close indeed for making it happen. Big improvements for them over the last couple of weeks, but it's not going to quite be enough in the end. NRG will qualify, emphatically so. Evil Geniuses may collapse at the very last minute. What does this mean for all the storylines going into the playoffs, but also Sentinels' chances for the LCQ in a couple of months' time? Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into today. NRG, of course, getting some fake DMs, some Sentinels, Evil Genius, and all this type of stuff to, maybe throw a series here or there to see if Sentinels can keep their chances alive. We'll get into that here in a second. I will also mention, though, the Shorty has been seeing a lot of use lately, and obviously for good reason. We're seeing it basically every player buy it, every single map, plenty of times, even on pistol rounds. It's incredibly strong right now, and yeah, the Shorty has definitely caused a bit of controversy given how cheap it is. I saw even, I think, Nismo from M80 the other day saying it's got to be nerfed, and ShahZaM says the same thing. The Shorty is ridiculous, it's got to go. So we'll see if they're looking at this, because I think it's quite clear that Shorty even being used in overtime on like the back of an operator is a quite common strategy at the moment, and it doesn't really feel like that should be particularly valid given how cheap it is. So I'm not sure what Riot will think about this. Whether they'll make changes to the Shorty would be a quite significant change to what the present meta is if they were to do so, but if that is going to happen, it probably won't happen for quite some time. Let's talk about the EMEA side real quick. This is becoming very clear. There are 2 more games for them in the regular season. One of them is Liquid versus KOI. That doesn't really matter that much. The big series is FUT Esports versus BBL, because BBL are 3-5. If they were to win, they'll be 4-5. FUT Esports also would be 4-5. Vitality are already 4-5, so there would be in that case a 3-way 4-5 tiebreaker. But the good thing for BBL is that they've already beaten Vitality, so if they were to beat FUT Esports, they would be topping, I believe, that 4-5 tiebreaker, and BBL would go through. And I think Vitality already lost to BBL and to FUT Esports, so that would put them as the loser of said tiebreaker. So yeah, if BBL win, then I think Vitality are going to be out, and I reckon that FUT Esports are kind of in no matter what type thing, so I actually don't think that they'll mind too much what happens in that series, which does leave Vitality in a real predicament. And yeah, it's all on BBL. Can they deliver? Can they win this series? Can they get over the line? If they can, they will get through to the playoffs. The playoffs in the Pacific region are starting today as well. As it stands, Team Secret are 1-0 as I'm recording, and it's currently 4-4 here, game 2 on the Ascent. I think it was 13-15 firstly on the Haven, but Secret took game 1 in the end. So yeah, tough for Zeta so far. Maybe they can bounce back. You guys will probably know by the time this video is going live. But let's dive into the Americas last night then. So Sentinels versus Furia. What a game this was built up to be, and what a game it actually was. Sentinels came out swinging game 1. Furia have been pretty good so far this stage, no doubt about it, and they deserve to qualify for the playoffs as they have now done. Sentinels, though, needed to win the series, and as we saw yesterday, really needed to win this 2-0. zyppan was filthy, by the way. This guy is unbelievable. Their best player right now, I would say. They won game 1 split, but game 2 they decided to send it to Haven, and this to me was a very interesting veto decision. We know that Furia have been very good on this map for some time, and Sentinels, they needed to win 2-0. They took a chance, they went to Haven, they thought they could make it work maybe with that aggressive approach. Look at the Shorty again in action as we see here, but Furia eventually do take the map too, and that eventually was the death sentence for Sentinels' chances. The way the rest of the day played out, if Sentinels had won this map, they would be in the playoffs, but they weren't, and therefore they aren't. So yeah, 2-0 went out the window for Sentinels, and a 2-1 was still on the cards. At this point, Sentinels, had they have won this, probably had about a 1% chance to make it to playoffs, right? The way things were going, and we'll see in a second exactly what necessitates that. But they still came out swinging. Sentinels, it was a ridiculous game. I'm not going to lie to you. This was one of the craziest overtimes. I believe it was the longest overtime we have seen, actually, so far in the Americas. I thought it was over at this point, because Furia took it to overtime. I thought Sentinels were choking a bit. And then there's a 3v5 pretty much retake, a 3v4, and then this is a massive kill from Packard, and Marv gets a couple as well. And then, I mean, look at this, Diffuser's coming in at the end here, and they somehow kill him through the Viper smoke just about. I mean, he has maybe half a second left on that defuse, and they get him just about. So 17-17. Eventually, they win the overtime Sentinels, and they get the job done. But, so yeah, those are the type of quality games that you want in the playoffs, really. But unfortunately, Sentinels aren't going to be there. So this was how it worked. If Sentinels won 2-0, then they would have some more chances, and we'll see in a second that NRG's 2-0 would have qualified Sentinels had they have won 2-0. They didn't know they won 2-1, and that meant that EG needed to beat NRG, Leviathan needed to beat Loud, and MIBR needed to beat 100 Thieves. All those three happening are like, as I say, 1% maybe, and shortly after the next series it became 0%. As Drew Spark says, their assistant coach had an aggressive strategy in the veto to get the 2-0. Didn't happen, but definitely some improvements from Sentinels. They will be frustrated, I think, especially for them. The 2-0 loss to EG was a real dagger. Had they have just won a map there, or, you know, just won that series, they'd have been in a much better spot, obviously. So they will look back at some of these series and think, damn, like if we just didn't bottle it on that day, we would be fine. They started out the season poorly. Marv just had like a remarkable few months, right? He joined, you know, Sentinels, I imagine, just to chill on their sub bench, chill in Canada, and collect the paycheck for a little bit as a content creator. While he pluses his return, then all of a sudden, Marv's like in the roster. He's IGLing the team to try and make a miracle, come back to the playoffs, and now he's going to be leading them through to the last chance qualifier. Bittersweet win. Wish we could have closed it out in 2, showing improvement. And the Sassy says, look, we're trying our best. We didn't meet expectations. We're grinding hard. Going to make you guys proud one day. And as TenZ says as well, definitely a right direction, or step in the right direction for the team in the last games with the squad. So they definitely have looked improved, no doubt. But a 2-1 fundamentally wasn't quite enough on the day. And it's not really as a result of this series. It's more than likely as a result of series they played quite a while ago. Super competitive though. 13-7 on Split. 13-5 on Haven will be frustrating for Sentinels. And then Bind, that ridiculous 19-17. That was a quite nice way in a way for Sentinels to bow out of competition for the next couple of months, because they will not be playing until the last chance qualifier, right? They won't be in the playoffs. They therefore won't be at Masters Tokyo. Then it comes down to the last chance qualifier in a couple of months' time to see which of the other Americas teams will make it through all the way to the World Championship, which is what they really want to do. Now, let's talk about EG versus NRG then, because it actually wasn't over for Sentinels yet. Had EG beaten NRG, the dream would still have been alive coming into today. So EG Ethan says, match day win equals playoffs, and Som says of NRG, you got this, bro. There's quite a little bit of beef actually between, okay, part of these guys, they're good friends, but it is interesting just to see some of the reaction to this. So NRG, they get the job done, a quick 2-0. They're looking really strong right now. I think they started 1-3, did they not? And they're ended here like 6-3. So I think that's a 5 series win streak for NRG. Victory is looking incredibly good. It's funny really because they started out pretty slow. Chet was asleep here during their kind of tech pause as they're up 3-2 in this particular map, and they close out the 2-0. So yeah, they started off quite slow, NRG. They were trying some new things out. Artist was not on the jet, etc, etc. And while he's still not always on the jet 100% of the time, he's definitely on it more often than not, and it does seem to be paying dividends for NRG. They've improved an awful lot, and Evil Geniuses, despite their great performance recently, they eventually don't quite have enough against the superior roster. And as he says here, FNS, BCJ would never have let Bind through though, right? Because if you're going to play NRG, playing them on Bind is quite optimistic at the very least. It was the same story with OpTic back in the day. Ever since Bind is back in the pool, they are very good at this map. NRG, FNS's calls on this map have always been incredible. So yes, EG really didn't have an answer. And as Som says, less body shooting, you guys aren't there yet. Playoffs is next for us, let's get it. So basically just flavouring these guys for not being, quite as good as they think they are. Pretty tough scenes for Ethan and EG in general, getting this close and now looking like they won't make it. It's not yet guaranteed for EG, but yes, Sentinels' victory against Furia pretty much screwed EG, because if Sentinels had lost, then they would be done and dusted for sure, and EG would make it. But now that's not the case. EG actually is quite likely not to make it now, which is really frustrating for them. As Chet says, maybe scrim us next time. So there's obviously a little bit of beef here between EG and NRG. Maybe what's happened behind the scenes in scrims or whatever. But yeah, tuck them into bed, says NRG in the reply. So pretty entertaining stuff, but good victory from NRG nonetheless. And that's a quick 2-0, and they're looking really good now going into the the playoffs right up there with Cloud9, Loud, NRG are probably the other team that you'd expect to go through based on recent form, all the way to Masters Tokyo. And if you qualify top 3 for Masters Tokyo, you qualify for Champions as well, which is a really big deal for these teams to peak at just the right moment. 13-9 on Binds, 13-7 on Split in the ends. Victor was a menace. I will say though as well on EG is that I don't mind. I would quite like to see them in the playoffs in fairness, but Demon 1, our understanding is, can't even compete in Masters Tokyo because there's some visa situation, or like they had to apply for him to be able to go a while ago, but because he wasn't on the roster initially and then they brought him in, they didn't have the right players signed up to do so. I guess they had BCJ involved. So if EG were to make the playoffs, which they still could do, and they were to get top 3 and qualify for Masters Tokyo, he wouldn't actually even be able to go to Tokyo. They'd have to play with probably BCJ instead. So, you know, if there's going to be no Demon 1 on EG in Tokyo, they're not really too bothered about seeing them there anyway. But I respect that they made a decent run recently, but when it really mattered, they did collapse a bit. So this is what it means then. Leviathan and Furia, counting their lucky stars, they're through. Their record against the other teams around them is too good. Leviathan's map differential is too good as well. So both of those teams and NRG, Cloud9, Loud, NRG are locked in 3rd seed now, it seems as well, which does make sense because they got 6 wins. C9 Loud yet to be determined who's going to be the number 1 seed here, which is a pretty big deal. But Furia, Leviathan, they're in. Just about they made it by the skin of their teeth. So we're going to have 3 South American teams and 3 North American teams. Pretty cool stuff. But the final one is going to be determined tonight by the game. If 100 Thieves can win, they go 5-4, they're good. If they lose, they'll go 4-5 and they will be out. EG will have a better map differential or whatever and they will qualify. But 100 Thieves know it's entirely in their hands now. Furia and Leviathan are in, largely in thanks to Sentinels doing what they did and EG losing as they did. So if 100 Thieves beats MIBR, the bracket will be as follows. NRG versus Furia, 100 Thieves versus Leviathan in the first round. Pretty big stuff. If MIBR beats 100 Thieves though, then EG get through instead. They'll play NRG and Leviathan will then play Furia. So the 4-way tiebreaker gets pretty complicated. But as it stands, it's really quite simple, right? 100 Thieves need to beat MIBR tomorrow. That will qualify them through guaranteed. If Cloud9 beat Crew tonight, they'll be 8-1 as they full well should. And if Leviathan were to beat Loud, that would therefore guarantee the number 1 seed going the way of Cloud9. But very much enjoyed to hear all your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.